70,000 years ago, our species stood on the edge of extinction. Fewer than 10,000 humans roamed the earth. No cities, no farming, just scattered tribes clinging to survival against predators, hunger, and a changing planet. And yet, from this fragile beginning, we spread to every continent, crossing deserts, oceans, and frozen lands. This is the impossible journey that led to you. You wake up to cold air brushing your face. It's not crisp or refreshing cold. It's the kind that makes your teeth ache before you've even sat up. Your shelter is a collection of sticks and animal skins, smelling faintly of smoke, damp earth, and whatever died on those skins before you wore them. There is no pillow. Your bed is a layer of grass over dirt. Congratulations. You made it through the night without freezing to death. That's considered a win. You stretch and your joints protest. You're 20 years old, which, in this world, makes you middle-aged. Your knees already sound like snapping twigs, but there's no time to complain. The sun is rising and the tribe is stirring. Today, like every day, survival is the only plan. There's no breakfast waiting. There's no kitchen. There's not even a food supply. Just a vague hope that something edible will be found before nightfall. You grab your spear, which is really just a sharpened stick you've convinced yourself is a weapon. You're barefoot, because making shoes takes time, and time is something you're usually spending not starving. The air smells of wood smoke from last night's fire, the same fire you huddled around for warmth, while trying not to think about the eyes that watched from the darkness. Out there, predators are hungry too. Big cats, packs of wild dogs, and sometimes even other humans, all competing for the same meals. And unfortunately, you are one of those possible meals. The land around you is harsh. In this part of Africa, the rainy season is over, and the streams have shrunk to muddy trickles. The ground crunches underfoot, dry and cracked. Every step is a reminder. If you don't find water soon, the heat will take you faster than hunger. Your tribe is small, maybe 20 people. You know them all by face, smell, and the sound of their footsteps. Trust isn't optional. It's the only currency you have. But even here, there are tensions. Someone might hoard food. Someone might refuse to share water. Someone might decide that you look better as a pile of meat than as a friend. You walk for hours. The sun climbs higher, baking your skin, turning the horizon into a shimmering blur. There's no shade, no breeze, just the steady rhythm of feet on hard earth and the occasional grunt as someone shifts their spear from one aching arm to the other. Around midday, you spot movement. Gazelle in the distance, thin, graceful, and far too fast for you to catch on foot. Still, you try. You break into a run, heart pounding, lungs burning, the spear heavy in your hand. The gazelle vanish into the grass before you get within throwing distance. You stop, bent over, sweating, and dizzy. That's half your energy gone for nothing. Spoiler alert, this is most of your hunting career. By late afternoon, you found nothing but a few edible roots. They taste like dirt because they are dirt, but you chew them anyway. Back at camp, a few others have returned with scraps of meat from a smaller kill. Maybe an antelope calf or a haunch of something larger they scavenged from a predator's leftovers. The smell of roasting meat is both comforting and depressing because there's not enough for everyone to eat their fill. Night comes quickly. The cold returns, seeping into your bones. You huddle close to the fire, wrapping yourself in animal hide, listening to the darkness outside. Somewhere, a lion roars. Someone in your group coughs. A deep, wet sound that means they won't last the season. You think about tomorrow. It will be the same. Walk, search, fail, walk more. The same endless pattern of hunger, cold, and fear. And yet, somewhere in all this misery, your kind is changing. You're learning to adapt, to move, to risk everything for a better place. You don't know it yet, but this relentless push to survive will carry your descendants far beyond this small, dying patch of land. For now, you close your eyes, the fire flickering against your skin, and hope you wake up again. You wake to the sound of footsteps outside your shelter. Slow, deliberate, not the frantic scurry of prey, but the steady pace of something that knows it belongs here as much as you do. It's just Nara, one of the elders, checking the perimeter. She's half blind, but still the first to notice danger. That's the thing about this place. Nobody gets to retire. You're useful until you stop breathing. The sun isn't up yet, but the eastern horizon is turning that pale gray blue that means another day is coming, whether you like it or not. The air is cool now, almost pleasant, but by midday it will feel like the sky is leaning on you. You drink from a goatskin pouch, the water inside tasting like mud and animal hair. It's warm. Of course it's warm. In this life, nothing is refreshing unless it's imaginary. You step outside and the Rift Valley spreads before you. Rolling hills cut by dry riverbeds, scattered acacia trees, and the distant shimmer of what might be water or might be a mirage. A few miles away, dust hangs in the air where a herd of zebra is moving. They're beautiful, they're fast, and they would kill you with a kick before letting you eat them. Nature's little joke. Your people have been here for longer than anyone can remember. Not in this exact spot. You move every few weeks when the water runs out or the predators get too bold. But always somewhere in this cradle of humanity. It's home in the same way a cage is home. Familiar, but inescapable. There's a rhythm to life here. At dawn, the women gather whatever edible plants they can find. Roots, berries, leaves that don't kill you immediately. The men, theoretically, hunt. Though most days that means coming back with nothing but blisters and excuses. In truth, everyone does whatever they can to not die. And the division of labor is more about habit than rules. You walk with a few others toward a patch of trees in the distance. The ground is uneven, full of sharp stones that jab your bare feet. Every so often, someone stops to check the wind or listen for movement. You're not alone out here. Hyenas have been trailing your group for days, always far enough away to be out of spear range, but close enough that you know what will happen if someone falls behind. The smells change as you move. Dust, dry grass, the faint sourness of old animal droppings, and then, faintly, the sweet, almost rotting scent of overripe fruit. You pick up the pace. Food. Finally. It's not much. A handful of small, hard figs, some already half-eaten by insects. Still, you gather them carefully, because there's no other choice. Every calorie matters. Back at camp, these will be split into laughably small portions. You'll chew each bite slowly, not because you're savoring it, but because you're trying to trick your stomach into thinking it was enough. As the sun climbs, the heat becomes oppressive. Sweat beads on your skin, then evaporates before it can cool you. Flies buzz around your face, stubborn and fearless. Your vision narrows to the path ahead, one foot in front of the other. This is life here. Endless walking between brief bursts of hope and longer stretches of disappointment. By the time you return to camp, a few hunters have brought back a small warthog. It's already skinned, the meat laid out in strips to dry over the fire. The smell is intoxicating, but you know better than to hope for more than a bite or two. The elders and children will eat first, another unspoken rule. You try not to resent it. That night, as the stars emerge in a sky so crowded with light it looks painted, you feel a pull you can't explain. The horizon whispers of something beyond these familiar hills. Lands you've never seen, rivers you've never crossed. You don't know the word for it yet, but it's there. Restlessness. One day, the water will run out for good here. The zebras will move on. The predators will move in. And when that happens, someone, maybe you, maybe your children, will take that first step away from Africa. The step that will begin the longest journey humans have ever made. For now, you sleep. The night is quiet. Tomorrow will not be. The decision isn't made in a dramatic council around the fire. No grand speeches. No one announces, "We leave tomorrow." It just happens. The river dries to a cracked scar in the dirt. The herds vanish. One morning, the only sound is the wind moving through empty grass, and that's when you know. The land has stopped loving you. You're part of a group of maybe 30 now, families that merged out of necessity. Numbers mean safety, or at least they mean there are more people to scream if something tries to eat you. Everyone carries something: spears, animal skins, gourds for water, babies that never stop crying. The elders limp along at the back, eyes half shut against the sun. The air smells different today. There's more salt, more dryness, a faint tang that clings to your tongue. You've never seen the ocean before, but it's close. You can feel it in the breeze. The ground under your feet shifts from hard-packed dirt to loose sand. Walking gets harder. Your calves burn. By midday, the heat is unbearable. Your shadow looks like it's melting. People wrap animal skins over their heads, not for fashion, but because cooking your brain from the inside isn't a great survival strategy. Water is rationed carefully, a single mouthful at a time. Your lips crack when you try to speak. And then, there it is. The sea. It's bigger than anything you've ever imagined. A shimmering expanse stretching beyond the horizon, blue in some places, blinding white where the sun hits. Waves crash against the shore, the sound deep and constant, like the earth breathing. The smell is overwhelming, salt, decay, and something alive you can't name. You stare, half in awe, half in dread. The older ones remember stories of a narrow place where the sea pulls back and you can cross to the other side. Arabia. Nobody knows what's there, just that it isn't here. And here is dying. The crossing won't be easy. Even at its narrowest, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait is still miles of open water. But the sea is calm today, and that's rare. You gather at the edge, dragging bundles of reeds and logs you've been tying together for days. The rafts are crude, more floating piles than boats, but they might hold if the gods are distracted. You push off. The first few minutes are exhilarating. The water is cool against your skin. The wind carries the smell of a world you've never known. But then the current takes hold. Your arms ache from paddling with flat pieces of wood. The sun reflects off the waves, stabbing your eyes. You try not to look down. The water is darker here, and you know there are things in it with teeth. Hours pass. The shore behind you shrinks to a thin line. The one ahead grows slowly, painfully. The children are quiet now, too tired to cry. Your mouth is dry. You've been saving the last of your water, but you know you'll drink it before you touch land. When you finally stagger onto the Arabian shore, the sand feels wrong, finer, lighter, and burning hot underfoot. You're exhausted, sunburned, and shaking. But you've made it. You've done something no one in your group has ever done before. You've left the only continent humanity has ever known. You don't celebrate. There's no strength for that. Instead, you collapse in the shade of a rock, panting, staring at the endless stretch of desert ahead. The land here is harsh, emptier than the one you left. No rivers in sight, just dust, wind, and heat. You've traded one dying place for another, but there's a difference. This is new, untouched. And somewhere out there, past the shimmering horizon, there might be something better. For now, you sleep on your side in the sand, the waves hissing behind you, the wind scraping grit across your skin. You dream of water, of grass under your feet, of nights without fear. When you wake, the journey will begin again. Morning comes too fast. You wake to the sound of wind scraping sand against stone, a constant whisper, like the land itself telling you you don't belong here. Your mouth tastes like salt and grit. Your skin burns where the sun hit it yesterday, and your legs ache from the crossing. You sit up slowly because moving too fast makes your vision go dark. Congratulations. You survived the first night on a new continent. Now you just have to survive all the rest. The landscape here feels hostile in a different way. Back in Africa, danger was alive. Lions, hyenas, crocodiles. Here, the enemy is the land itself. No trees for shade, no rivers for water. Just an endless sweep of pale sand that reflects the sun straight into your skull. The air shimmers with heat. Your tribe walks in silence, heads down, eyes scanning the ground for anything green. You could be the first people to ever set foot here, or the last. By midday, the heat is unbearable. You're sweating less now, which is a bad sign. Your body is conserving water because it thinks you're dying. You pass a cracked turtle shell in the sand, the only sign of life you've seen since sunrise. Someone picks it up, because anything that can hold water is worth carrying, even if you don't have water yet. The food situation is worse. You had some dried meat from the crossing, but it's gone now. Your stomach aches, not with sharp hunger, but with that dull, hollow emptiness that feels like it could last forever. The children walk slower. One of the elders stumbles and has to be helped along. Every step forward feels like a gamble. Maybe the next valley has water, or maybe it's just more sand. Late in the day, you spot movement on the horizon. At first, you think it's another mirage, but the shapes are real. Low, thorny bushes clinging to the edge of a rocky outcrop. They're not much, but they're alive. and where there's stubborn, sunburned vegetation, there's sometimes a trickle of water underneath. You dig at the base with your hands, scraping your fingers raw, and eventually hit damp earth. It's not enough to drink from directly, so you press wet sand to your lips and suck. It tastes like dirt because it is dirt, but it keeps you moving. At night, the temperature plummets. The desert doesn't hold heat. The same sand that baked you during the day now leaches the warmth from your bones. You wrap yourself in skins, huddle near the others, and listen to the wind howl through the rocks. It's a different sound than back in Africa. Sharper, emptier. You wonder if this is what the whole world sounds like beyond the cradle. Days pass. The coastline becomes your guide. The sea is to your left, the desert to your right. You stay near the water not because you can drink it. It's useless for that. But because you can sometimes find food here. Shellfish, crabs, the occasional stranded fish left behind by the tide. You eat them raw. Cooking would mean using precious firewood. And there's none to spare. The smell of the shoreline becomes familiar. Salt, rot, and the faint copper tang of dead things. Your hands are always sticky from fish guts. You don't care. The ocean is generous in its own strange way, and without it, you wouldn't last a week here. Over time, you notice something. You're getting used to this. Your skin is darker from the sun, your feet tougher from walking over rock and sand. You can tell the time of day from the way the shadows lean. You know which bushes hide thorns, and which hide small, edible pods. You've stopped dreaming of back home, because home is just wherever you wake up without dying. But there's a pull forward, always forward. Beyond the desert, beyond the next headland, there's land you've never seen. And maybe, just maybe, it's kinder than this. Spoiler alert, it's not. The change creeps up on you. One day, the sand under your feet is pale and burning. The next, it's darker, cooler, with blades of grass pushing through. The desert thins. The coastline curves eastward. The air smells different now, heavier, wetter. You taste it before you feel it. Rain. At first, you're almost excited. After weeks of thirst, the idea of water falling from the sky feels like magic. And then it happens. The first drops are warm, fat, and sporadic. Then the sky opens, and you are inside the rain. It doesn't fall in neat little lines like you imagined. It comes sideways, in sheets, in a roar so loud you can barely hear your own thoughts. The novelty wears off fast. Your skin is soaked, your clothes are soaked, and your pack, the one holding your food and tools, is soaked. Everything smells like wet dog and mildew. You sleep on damp ground. You wake up on damp ground. You are starting to forget what dry feels like. But there's life here. So much life. The trees are taller, their branches tangled overhead like green nets. Vines hang down, some thick enough to climb, others covered in sharp spines waiting to tear your hands open. Insects are everywhere, buzzing, clicking, landing on your face and biting. And the animals, well, they're bigger, louder, and much less scared of you than you'd prefer. Your first encounter with a wild boar happens when you're just trying to gather some roots near camp. You don't see it until it's already charging. You freeze, because it's hard to run when you're busy imagining your own funeral. Someone from your group shouts, waving a spear, and the boar veers off, disappearing into the undergrowth with a noise like an angry drum beat. You make a mental note. Everything here wants to kill you, and most of it can. The food situation is better, though. There are fruits, real fruits, sweet and bright, with juice that runs down your chin. There are fish in the rivers, crabs under the rocks, birds that can be trapped if you're patient enough to sit still for hours. You find yams buried under the soil, and for the first time in months, your stomach feels almost full. Almost. The rivers are both a blessing and a curse. They give you water, food, and a way to travel without hacking through the jungle for days. But they also hide crocodiles. You see your first one while bathing. Just a pair of eyes, floating silently, watching. You step out of the water slowly, trying not to splash, trying not to look like a snack. The eyes vanish beneath the surface, and you spend the rest of the day glancing over your shoulder. At night, the forest hums. Crickets, frogs, something that sounds like a baby crying but definitely isn't. The air is warm and wet, clinging to your skin like another layer. Fires smoke heavily here, the damp wood never quite catching. You sit close anyway, because the light keeps away some of the smaller predators. Your group is different now. People who were strong in the desert are struggling in the heat and damp. Others, who could barely keep up before, seem to thrive here, moving confidently through the undergrowth, finding edible plants you've never seen before. Skills shift, leadership shifts. Out here, authority isn't about who talks the loudest. It's about who can keep everyone alive. Days blur into weeks. You move along the coasts and rivers, deeper into this strange, dripping world. You don't know where you're going. You just know you can't stop. The old ones say there's always something better beyond the next hill, the next bend in the river. Sometimes you believe them. One night, as you lie under a shelter of palm leaves, listening to the rain pound above, you think of the desert. You think of the sea. And you realize something. You've traded one kind of endless for another. This one is green, wet, and full of teeth. But you're still moving, always moving. Tomorrow, the jungle will close around you again, and the path forward will vanish. You'll keep going anyway. You find the sea again, almost by accident. The jungle just stops. One moment you're pushing through tangled vines, sweating so much your skin tastes like salt when you lick your lips, and then light. Open sky. The trees fall away, and there it is, the ocean, rolling and endless, the same one you left months ago, but dressed differently now. This coast is not the pale, dead sand of Arabia. It's darker here, almost black in places, and littered with shells, driftwood, and things the tide dragged in. The water is warmer, calmer, and carries a different smell. Less sharp salt, more rotting seaweed and sun-baked fish guts, homey in its own disgusting way. Traveling along the shoreline is easier than pushing through the jungle. You can see where you're going. You can actually walk in something resembling a straight line without having to hack at vines every 10 steps. And most importantly, you can find food. Food here comes in many forms, none of them pretty. Shellfish cling to rocks like tiny armored doors, and you pry them off with sharp stones. Crabs skitter sideways, and if you're quick enough, they become dinner. Small fish wash up after storms, already dead, which is convenient if you're not picky about the smell. The ocean is a generous provider, as long as you don't mind eating things that stare at you while you chew them. You learn to read the tide. When the water pulls back far enough, you can walk out over the exposed sand and pick through tide pools. There are sea cucumbers, starfish, and eels that snap at your fingers. Some are edible, some make you sick. The trick is figuring out which is which before you spend the night doubled over in the sand. Every few days, the jungle presses back in. Rivers spill into the ocean, forcing you to decide. Go inland, where crocodiles and leeches wait, or try to swim across and hope the current doesn't pull you out to sea. Neither choice is good. You learn to hate choices. Sometimes you find signs of other people. A footprint in wet sand. A fish skeleton picked clean and left by the tide. A broken spear shaft, washed smooth by the waves. You never know if these strangers are ahead of you or behind you, friendly or the kind who would rather have your supplies than your company. You keep moving, because standing still in this world is just waiting to die. Nights on the coast are loud. The waves crash and hiss. Seabirds scream. Somewhere out there, beyond the line where water meets darkness, there's lightning. Just a silent flicker in the clouds. You lie awake, listening to it all, thinking how strange it is that something so vast, so beautiful, is also one wrong step away from killing you. The coastline teaches you patience. Shellfish don't come when called. Crabs don't surrender just because you're hungry. You have to wait for the tide, watch the waves, learn the patterns. You start noticing things you didn't before. The way certain birds circle over shoals of fish, the glint of shells half buried in the sand, the change in the wind before a storm. And slowly, without realizing it, you become good at this. Not great. There's still plenty of hunger, still nights where you lie awake with an empty belly, but better. You're not just passing through anymore. You're surviving because of this place, not in spite of it. The coast stretches on for weeks. You move past wide river mouths, rocky headlands, Stretches of beach so empty you start wondering if you've reached the end of the world. You haven't. The world, inconveniently, just keeps going. And so do you. Somewhere far ahead, the land will change again. The air will grow heavier. The trees will return, thicker and taller than before. You'll follow the curve of the shoreline until it turns into something else entirely. You don't know it yet, but this path, this ancient highway of sand and salt, will carry your kind farther than you can imagine. For now, you walk. The tide is going out and there might be crabs waiting. The air changes before the land does. It gets thicker, like you're breathing through damp cloth. The wind that once came clean off the sea now carries the smell of flowers, rot, and something musky that makes the hair on your arms stand up. You know what that means. Jungle. Again. The coastline narrows, the sand giving way to tangled green. Roots like twisted ropes rise from the earth, and leaves the size of your body drip with warm rain even when the sky is clear. The ocean is still there, somewhere behind the trees, but its voice is muffled now, replaced by the chatter of unseen birds and the distant howl of something with lungs bigger than yours. Moving here is slow work. You can't just walk. You climb over logs, squeeze through vines, wade through knee-deep mud. You pick up leeches without noticing, only finding them later when you see the blood running down your leg. Your spear is always in your hand, not just for hunting, but for the moments when the undergrowth moves in ways it shouldn't. Food is both abundant and dangerous. Fruits hang heavy on the trees, some sweet and safe, others looking just as inviting, but hiding a day of vomiting in your future. There are monkeys everywhere, loud, quick, and not afraid to throw things at you from the branches. You try to catch one once, and it ends with a scratch down your arm and a renewed respect for things that live above ground. And then one day, you see them. Not monkeys, not your people, something else. They're standing at the edge of a clearing, half hidden in the shade. Broad-shouldered, stockier than you, with faces that are almost human but not quite. Their eyes are dark, watchful. They hold spears, too, though theirs are heavier, the tips shaped from stone sharper than yours. For a long moment, neither side moves. The air is thick with the smell of wet earth and whatever animal was here last. No one speaks. You don't share a language. You don't even share a history. But you know one thing. This is not their first time seeing strangers. And from the way they watch you, heads tilted slightly, bodies still but ready, you suspect it's not always gone well. You back away, slowly, carefully. The others in your group do the same. Later, someone whispers around the fire about the others. Not quite us, not quite something else. You don't have a word for them yet, but centuries later, someone will call them Denisovans. The encounter changes the way you travel. You move quieter now, keep fires smaller at night, stick closer together. You're not alone out here, and that means every patch of forest could hide either a meal or a fight. The days stretch on. The coastline reappears here and there, a strip of beach between the trees and the sea. You walk those parts gratefully, letting the salt wind cut through the damp heat of the jungle. Sometimes you find signs of the others, a broken spearhead, a fire pit, the remains of a meal picked clean, always fresh enough to remind you they're close. One evening, while the tide's out, you find something strange. A pile of shells arranged in a circle, not scattered the way they'd fall naturally. Someone made this. You stare at it longer than you mean to. It's not a trap, not a tool, not anything you can use, but it's something. A sign that whoever's out there thinks about the world in ways you do. The next morning, you move on. Always forward. The land ahead is breaking into fragments. Not just one solid coastline anymore, but islands, scattered like stepping stones across the sea. You don't know it yet, but soon you'll leave this shore entirely, heading into waters that hide more than just fish. The Far East is calling, and it will demand more from you than anything you've faced so far. You reach the edge of the world without realizing it. One morning the forest opens up, and instead of more land stretching away in a green, endless wall, there's water. Not a river, not a bay, an ocean. Blue all the way to the horizon, the surface shifting like muscle under skin. You've seen the sea before, but this is different. Here, the land is fractured, small islands scattered like bones across the water. Some are close enough to see trees swaying. Others are just faint shadows on the edge of vision, appearing and disappearing with the clouds. There's no clear path. The coast you've been following for months just stops. And that's when the talk starts. The elders say there's more land beyond the horizon, bigger land, better hunting, fewer people to compete with. They don't say how they know, but you've learned that in this life, knowing usually means guessing loudly. The sea is a problem. You can wade into it up to your waist before the sand drops away into dark nothing. You can swim short distances. Everyone can. But the water here is alive in a way rivers never were. The tides pull and push without warning. The waves slap at your legs like they're trying to trip you. And then there's what lives in it. You've seen shapes under the surface, sleek, fast, with fins like knives. Still, the choice is simple. Stay here, where food is running thin, or risk the crossing. And simple, in this world, usually means dangerous but unavoidable. You gather materials, long logs for the frame, palm trunks for buoyancy, vines to lash it all together. The result is something between a raft and a bad idea. You test it in the shallows, and it floats, barely. It also creaks in a way that suggests it would prefer to be back on land. The morning you leave, the ocean is flat and shining, a good omen, or just a lie the sea is telling. You push off, legs churning against the sand until you're free of it, then climb onto the raft. The group divides between those paddling with flat pieces of wood and those who just grip the sides and pray. At first, it's almost pleasant. The sun is warm, the wind cool, the horizon slow to change. Then the swells pick up. The raft rises and falls, groaning with each shift. The sea gets louder. Your hands blister on the paddles, salt stinging the raw skin. Hours pass. Your legs cramp from sitting still. Your mouth is dry from the salt spray. You start to hate the sound of water, not the crash of waves, but the smaller, constant slap-slap against the logs, like a reminder that the only thing between you and drowning is this bundle of sticks. When the first island rises out of the water ahead, it looks impossibly green. You can see palms, maybe even fruit hanging from them. The last stretch is the worst. The current pulls against you, and for a while it feels like you're paddling in place. But then the raft grinds against sand, and you stumble off, legs shaking, tasting land again. The island is small, but it's alive. Crabs scuttle in the shallows, bright birds flash between trees. The water from a small stream is sweet and cool. You drink until your stomach aches, and for a moment you almost forget the sea waiting on the other side, because there is another side. This island isn't the destination, it's just a stepping stone. Somewhere beyond it, across even more water, is the bigger land the elders talked about. And if they're wrong, well, then you've sailed halfway to nowhere for nothing. That night, you lie on the sand, staring at the stars. The sound of the waves feels different now, not just threatening, but promising. The ocean took you here. Tomorrow, it will take you farther. The island feels safe for exactly 3 weeks. You find fresh water, fruit, fish, enough to stop your stomach from feeling like an empty drum. You even start to think about staying. But safety here is a trick. One morning, you notice fewer birds. The next, a storm comes in hard and fast, tearing down trees, flooding the low ground, and sweeping half your supplies into the sea. The island reminds you it is not your home. It is just a pause. When the weather clears, you look north. The sky there is pale, the air cooler. Word spreads among your group. The islands continue that way, stepping stones toward new land, bigger land, different land. You know what this means. The ocean again. The rafts are rebuilt, lashed tighter this time. You've learned a few things. Don't overload with people, keep the heaviest supplies in the center, and tie everything down, because the sea likes stealing. You push off again, the wind cool on your face, the salt already crusting on your skin. The islands become smaller, rockier. Some barely have trees. Some are nothing more than jagged cliffs where seabirds scream from narrow ledges. You stop where you can, take what you can, eggs from nests, shellfish from tide pools, and keep moving. The farther north you go, the less forgiving the weather gets. The air loses its softness. The nights are colder, the wind sharper. The storms last longer, and the waves come from two directions at once, turning the raft into a floating argument with gravity. Your muscles ache from paddling. Your hands stay raw, scabbed over with salt. Food changes too. The warm water fish you grew used to are replaced by smaller, faster ones that don't give up without a fight. You catch fewer of them. The fruit vanishes entirely. Instead, you eat roots dug from rocky soil, bitter greens that taste like earth, and whatever meat you can get from seabirds unlucky enough to cross your path. One morning, you see it. Not another island, but a long, low line on the horizon. Land. Bigger than anything you've seen since leaving the continent. You paddle harder, even as your arms threaten to stop working. The waves push against you like they're trying to send you back. But slowly, the line becomes hills, then cliffs, then a shoreline of dark sand. The beach is cold under your feet when you step off the raft. The air smells different here. Not just salt, but pine and something sharp, like snow far away. You've arrived somewhere new, but it doesn't feel like a fresh start. It feels like the beginning of another test. The land here is wilder. The forests are darker, the trees taller. The animals are larger, furred for the cold. You track something with massive hoof prints, but never see it. At night, you hear howls echoing through the trees, and everyone moves a little closer to the fire. You head inland to explore, but the ground rises into ridges and cliffs, slowing your progress. Streams cut through the rock, their water shockingly cold, but clean enough to drink without hesitation. You fill every container you have. The elders say you can't stay in one place for long, not because of danger, but because of hunger. Even here, with new plants to gather and new animals to hunt, the land can only support you for so long. You're still a guest, and eventually, guests wear out their welcome. So you keep moving, north again, always north. The air will get colder still, the forests will thin, and the sea will return, this time in the form of ice. You don't know it yet, but you are heading for a place where the land and sea blend together, where the path forward is frozen solid beneath your feet. For now, you walk through the dark forest, your breath white in the air, the sound of the surf fading behind you. Another chapter begins. The forest doesn't end so much as it thins, the trees growing smaller, their branches bare more months than not. The ground turns harder under your feet, frozen in places even though the sky is clear. The air here feels different, not just cold, but sharp, the kind that stings your nose and makes your lungs ache. You've stepped into the edge of a world ruled by winter. This is the Siberian frontier. It doesn't care about you. It doesn't even notice you're here. Your days are shorter now. The sun rises late and sets early, giving you only a narrow slice of light to travel by. At night, the cold settles in like an extra weight, creeping under every layer of fur and hide you wrap yourself in. Fires burn low and fast, the wood brittle, the smoke rising straight into a windless sky. The animals here are giants. You see herds of shaggy creatures moving in the distance, mammoths, their tusks curling forward like frozen rivers. They move slowly, as if they have all the time in the world. Closer to the trees, massive deer with antlers wider than your body turn to watch you, deciding if you're worth the effort of avoiding. Hunting is harder now. The snow muffles your steps, but it also hides your targets until they're almost gone. Tracks vanish in sudden flurries. Your breath hangs in the air like a signal to everything around you. Here comes trouble. Food isn't just fuel here, it's heat. You eat more than you ever have just to keep moving, your body burning through meat and fat as fast as you can find it. When you're lucky, you bring down a reindeer, its hide becoming a new layer against the cold, its marrow a small feast in the firelight. The land itself shifts under your feet. Frozen rivers become roads in winter, only to melt into impossible barriers when the ice breaks. You cross one carefully, each step a gamble, listening for the sound of cracking beneath the snow. The people you travel with grow quieter, words freeze in the air, and so does laughter. Your group moves in single file, heads down, conserving energy. You start to recognize everyone's walk, who leans forward when tired, who drags their feet in deep snow, who never seems to slow down no matter how far you go. Sometimes, at night, the sky changes. The stars you've always known are joined by shifting bands of light, green, red, even purple, rippling silently from horizon to horizon. You don't know what they are, but they feel alive, as if the sky is watching you back. No one speaks when they appear. You just watch until your fingers ache from the cold. You follow the great rivers north and east, always skirting the edges of frozen seas and windswept plains. Every few days you pass the remains of old camps, stones from long-dead fires, splintered bones, sometimes a tool half buried in the frost. You're not the first to pass this way. You won't be the last. The elders begin to speak of a land bridge, a place where the sea turns to solid ground, not for a moment, but for centuries. A road of ice and earth stretching to a whole other world. They say it's not far now. You tell yourself that means weeks. You know it probably means years. In the meantime, you adapt. You learn to build shelters from snow, to insulate the ground with branches before sleeping, to keep moving even when your legs beg you to stop. Because here, stopping for too long is the same thing as freezing. One morning, the wind shifts, bringing with it a smell you haven't known in months. Salt. The ocean is near again, but this time it won't be waves waiting for you. It will be something else entirely, something solid, and somewhere beyond it, another continent. You smell it before you see it, the ocean. But when you finally reach the shore, it's not the rolling, endless blue you remember. It's locked in place, frozen, a pale, glittering expanse stretching out farther than you can see. The elders call it the land bridge. In truth, it's not all ice. Beneath your feet is solid ground, packed hard by centuries of cold, a strip of earth once swallowed by the sea. Now it lies exposed. A frozen highway linking two continents that don't know each other exists. The wind here is constant. It scrapes across your skin like stone. The air tastes of salt and iron. Every sound seems louder. Boots crunching in snow, sled runners rasping against ice, the creak of leather as you shift your weight. You step onto it slowly, half expecting the surface to crack. It doesn't. It's as steady as the land you left behind, just colder and emptier. The sky above is pale and cloudless, the sun a thin coin that gives no warmth. Your group moves in a long, thin line. Hunters walk ahead, scanning for signs of life. Families and supplies follow behind, pulled on sleds by dogs with thick, frost-covered fur. Every breath you take crystallizes instantly, clinging to the fur around your hood. It's not barren. Every so often, you see life. A lone caribou moving across the ice, an Arctic fox darting between snowdrifts, dark shapes of seals resting along the edges of frozen pools. The sea beneath the ice is alive, even if the surface feels dead. You travel by instinct, following the coastline when you can, venturing inland when storms block the way. At night, the cold is almost unbearable. Fires burn low to conserve fuel, and you curl around one another for warmth, your breath trapped in the layers of fur. The snow reflects the starlight so brightly, it's hard to tell where the land ends and the sky begins. Some days are calm, almost peaceful. Others bring winds so strong they strip the warmth from your body in minutes. On those days, you keep moving, not because you want to, but because stopping means dying. The crossing is long, longer than you imagined. Weeks turn into months. You stop often to hunt and rest, leaving behind small piles of bones and the charred rings of old fires. You begin to think of the land bridge not as a place, but as a season. One night, the aurora appears again, curling across the sky like green smoke. The light dances over the frozen expanse, and for a moment you almost believe the stories, that the sky is guiding you, showing the way forward. Then, one morning, the horizon changes. It's not ice anymore. It's hills, low, dark, and solid, breaking the endless white. You push forward faster, the dogs pulling harder, the wind at your back for once. When you finally step onto that new land, it doesn't feel like a victory. It feels quiet. The air is just as cold, the snow just as deep. But something about it is different. The ground beneath your feet has never known your kind. No fire has burned here. No footprints but yours have marked the snow. You've done it, crossed from one world into another. But you know without being told that the journey isn't over. This new continent stretches for thousands of miles, filled with creatures you've never seen and challenges you can't imagine. Still, you keep moving, because that's all you've ever done. The land behind you feels like a dream now, a white, endless plain that could have swallowed you whole if it wanted to. Ahead is something different. The snow thins, replaced by windswept grass poking through patches of frost. The hills rise and fall like the backs of sleeping animals, and the horizon feels wider than anything you've ever seen. You've crossed into the Americas, not that you have a name for it. To you, it's just the next stretch of ground under your feet. The air is sharper here, cleaner somehow. Every breath cuts, but it also fills you in a way the old world didn't. The animals notice you now. You see heads turn in the distance, hear the sudden stillness in a herd when your group appears. These creatures have never seen a human before. You are a new shape in their world, and they don't know yet whether to fear you. You travel south, hugging rivers when you can. They are your lifeline. Water to drink, fish to catch, and a guide through the rolling grasslands. Sometimes the rivers freeze overnight, trapping fish beneath a sheet of glassy ice. You break through when you can, taking what you need before moving on. The further you go, the more alive the land becomes. Herds of strange animals move across the plains, towering beasts with curved horns, massive sloths that move like boulders rolling in slow motion, cats with teeth so long they don't seem real. Your hunters speak in low voices when they see them, the sound carrying over the grass like a warning. The cold is still with you, but it no longer rules every moment. Some days you travel without gloves, feeling the air against your skin. Fires burn higher now, the wood greener, the smoke heavier. The smell clings to your hair and clothes until you no longer notice it. You pass through valleys where the ground is littered with bones, some bleached white, others cracked and gnawed. The hunters say it means predators are near. You keep moving. Nights are easier now. You build larger shelters, not just for warmth, but for comfort. The sound of the wind becomes background noise instead of a threat. People laugh more, and not just at the end of a good hunt. The weight of survival is still there, but it no longer crushes you. You start to leave small marks on the land, stones piled to mark a trail, carvings on a tree to remember a campsite, a fire pit lined with rocks to keep it from scattering in the wind. Little signs that you were here, that you belonged here, even for a moment. One day, you crest a ridge and see something that stops you. A valley so green it looks impossible. A river snakes through it, the grass shimmering in the sun. And grazing there, unaware of you, are animals as large as the mammoths you left behind, but with shorter hair and massive curving horns. Your hunters look at one another, and without speaking, you know this is where you will stay for a while. You make camp on the high ground, where you can see for miles. Fires burn bright against the darkening sky. You eat well that night, fresh meat, roasted roots, berries found near the riverbank. For the first time in months, you sleep without the taste of salt or ice in the air. But in the morning, the horizon calls again. You can feel it, the pull to keep moving, to see what lies beyond the next ridge, the next valley, the next unknown. This land is vast, and you are only a small part of it. But you are here now, and that changes everything. You could stay here. Plenty of people would. The valley is rich, the herd steady, the river clean. But that itch doesn't go away. The one that says, keep going. So you turn south. The land rises and falls like slow waves. You follow ridgelines when you can, looking down on valleys full of game. The air warms, bit by bit. You stop seeing your breath in the mornings. Snow becomes a stranger, clinging only to the highest peaks far in the distance. The further you go, the more the world changes. The grasslands give way to forests, tall and thick, their canopies trapping the sunlight in fractured patterns. It's quiet in here, the kind of quiet that makes you nervous, because something is always watching. You move slower, your group staying close. New smells drift through the air, not just pine and earth, but flowers you've never seen, plants with sharp, sweet scents that make your head swim. You test some, eat others, and quickly learn which are worth the risk. The animals are changing too. Gone are the slow, shaggy mammoths and sloths. Here, deer dart like shadows, and cats with short fur and sharp faces stalk silently along the edges of your vision. One night you hear a scream, not human, not anything you've ever heard before, echoing through the trees. You don't sleep much after that. You follow rivers southward, because rivers always lead somewhere. They swell with meltwater from the mountains, carrying fish that are easier to catch than any deer. You spear them in the shallows, roast them over fires, and keep moving. There are days when the forest opens into rolling hills, and the sky feels impossibly big again. You can see storms forming far to the west, curling dark and heavy before spilling rain across the horizon. It hits you eventually. Warm, heavy rain that soaks you through in minutes. You hate it at first. Then you start to like it. Food becomes more varied. You find nuts, roots, berries, even honey when someone is brave enough to challenge a beehive. You still hunt, but the need to kill something every day fades. The land offers more than you're used to, and you take advantage of it. Every so often, you find signs that you're not the first here. A scattering of tools, a crude shelter long abandoned, footprints pressed into dried mud. You never see the people, but you feel them. The elders say they are like you, but different, cautious, watching from a distance. The children in your group grow stronger. They keep pace now, running ahead on warm days, splashing in shallow streams. You realize something. This journey, the one you think of as a straight line south, is becoming a way of life. There's no final destination, just the next stretch of land, the next horizon. Some nights you camp on high ground and watch the stars. They're the same ones you knew in the north, but the way they rise and set is changing. You don't know why. You just know the world is shifting under your feet, and you are shifting with it. Then one morning, you wake to a view that steals your breath, a chain of mountains stretching from one horizon to the other. Taller than anything you've ever seen, their peaks hidden in clouds, their sides streaked with snow even in the warm air. The elders murmur about going around them. Others say there must be a way through. Either way, you keep walking, because this is what you do. From a distance, they looked like walls. Up close, they look worse. The mountains rise like the bones of the earth, jagged and cruel. Snow streaks the peaks even though the valleys below are green and warm. Clouds cling to their sides like they're afraid to leave. You stand at the base and feel small, smaller than you've ever felt. The elders call them the spine of the world. You believe it. One wrong step, and the earth could shake you off like a fly. You start the climb slowly. The air is heavier here, wet with mist that beads on your skin. The ground changes under your feet. Soft soil becomes stone, and the stone becomes something sharper, as if the mountain is daring you to try. At first, the slope is kind. You walk through forests of twisted trees, their branches covered in moss that drips constantly, even when it isn't raining. Birds scream from the canopy, their calls strange and piercing. You spot flashes of bright feathers, quick and impossible to catch. But the higher you climb, the colder it gets. The mist turns to clouds, and the clouds turn to fog so thick you can't see the person walking ahead of you. The air thins. You breathe harder, stopping more often. Your chest aches at night. The animals change again. Small deer with thin legs dart across the slopes. Rodents the size of rabbits dig into the rocky soil. Every so often you spot a shadow moving higher up, a predator, big enough to take you, watching from above. Water is harder to find. You follow streams when you can, drinking straight from them, the water shockingly cold. Food becomes a constant worry. Hunting is almost impossible in this terrain, so you rely on what you carried with you: dried meat, nuts, roots. It runs low fast. Some days the path narrows until there's barely enough room for your feet. A single slip means a fall you won't survive. You keep your eyes on the ground, focusing on the next step, then the next. You pass through stretches of barren rock where nothing grows. The wind screams here, cutting through your furs and carrying grit into your eyes. Your lips crack, your hands split. At night, you huddle together, building walls of stone to block the wind. Still, the mountains have their moments of kindness. Sometimes the fog clears, and you see the world laid out beneath you, ridges folding into valleys, rivers winding like silver threads, the land you came from fading into memory. On those days, you feel like you're walking through the sky, but the climb never stops. Each ridge you crest reveals another higher one behind it. The elders say the gods are testing you. You're starting to believe it. Finally, after days, maybe weeks, you reach the highest point you've ever stood on. The air here is thin enough to make your head swim. The wind is constant, cold and dry, with a taste like stone. And then, for the first time in what feels like forever, the ground slopes down. You can see it, valleys stretching southward, bathed in sunlight, green and alive. It doesn't matter that they're still far away. You've found the way through. The descent is faster but just as dangerous. Loose rock shifts under your feet. Streams turn to waterfalls, crashing down into the valleys below. You move carefully, your knees aching from the strain. When you finally step onto softer ground again, the air feels thick and rich. You breathe deeply, greedily, as if you've been holding your breath for months. You've crossed the spine of the world, but the land ahead is stranger still. The first thing you notice is the air. It's heavy now, warm, wet, and full of smells you can't name. You've left the thin, biting wind of the mountains behind, and every breath here feels like drinking from a cup you didn't know you needed. The cold is gone, but in its place is something just as relentless: heat. The slopes are green, not the dull, dry grass of the plains, but a green so deep it looks alive. Vines twist around trees thicker than any you've seen, their roots coiling out of the ground like sleeping snakes. The forest hums. Insects buzz in clouds that follow you, and the air is never still. It's hard to move here. The ground is soft, your feet sinking into layers of leaves and mud. Every step is a guess. Sometimes you plant your foot and find it sliding, the earth crumbling away beneath you. The group moves slower than it ever did in the mountains. The sounds are constant. Birds scream from the canopy in voices that sound almost human. Monkeys, small, quick, and curious, appear in the trees, throwing sticks and chattering at you from above. Somewhere deeper in the forest, something roars. It's not the roar of a predator you know. It's deeper, wetter, and it makes the skin between your shoulder blades itch. Food is both everywhere and nowhere. Fruit hangs in bright clusters from trees, but some are bitter enough to make you gag. Others swell your tongue and make your throat burn. You learn fast which to take and which to leave. Hunting here is a different game. The animals are smaller, faster, and harder to see in the tangle of leaves. You set traps, and sometimes they work. Water is never far, but it's never clean. Rivers wind through the valleys, slow and brown, carrying the taste of soil and plants. You drink when you have to, hoping the fire later will kill whatever's hiding in it. Nights are loud. The forest doesn't sleep. It only changes shift. Frogs croak in deafening waves, insects buzz and whine, and unseen things crash through the undergrowth. Fires help, but only a little. The darkness feels thicker here, pressing close, hiding everything beyond the glow. The elders say the land is rich. Rich lands bring people. They're right. You start to see signs of others again. Footprints in the mud, the faint remains of an old fire, a spear haft half buried in leaves. You wonder if they're ahead of you or following. You move along the edges of the forest where you can, skirting the densest growth. The ground is firmer there, and the wind moves more freely. From the hills, you can see the forest stretching endlessly to the west, and beyond it, a glint of water so wide and bright it swallows the horizon. You don't know the word ocean, but you understand what you're seeing, the end of the land. It feels strange, almost wrong, to know that if you keep going, there will be nowhere left to walk. But you're not there yet. The forest still has more to test you with. You wade through swamps where the water hides your legs and the mud tries to keep your feet. You cross fallen trees, slick with moss, knowing a single slip could mean a fall into water that moves without a sound. Some days you miss the cold. At least the cold didn't crawl on your skin or hum in your ears. but you keep going because that's all there is to do. And then, one morning, you crest a ridge and see it clearly. The endless blue, stretching away under the sun, broken only by the dark shapes of islands far offshore. You've reached the edge of a world. The question now is, will you stop? The forest ends without warning. One moment, you're pushing through vines and swatting at insects. The next, you're staring at water so wide and bright it makes your eyes ache. The air smells different here, sharp and salty, with a taste of metal and storms. You step forward until your feet sink into sand. It's hot, soft, and alive with tiny movements. Shells crack under your toes. The sound of the waves is constant, a slow, heavy breathing that never stops, never pauses. You've never seen this much water. Rivers you understand. Lakes you've crossed. But this is a thing with no end. You squint at the horizon, but the sky swallows it whole. Somewhere out there, the sun is dying in the west, and the water catches its fire in gold and red. The group stands in silence. No one speaks. The elders murmur about the spirits that live here, the ones who can swallow a person whole without leaving a trace. You believe them. The sea feels alive, and not in a friendly way. Food is different here. You find creatures in shells, slow and easy to grab at low tide. Fish glitter in the shallows, flashing silver before darting away. Some of the braver hunters wade in with spears, but the waves knock them off balance, and more than one comes back bleeding from something unseen. The nights are cold. The ocean wind cuts through your furs, bringing a damp chill that clings to your bones. You light fires on the beach, watching sparks drift into the dark before being eaten by the sound of the surf. The stars here feel closer somehow, reflected in the black water until it's hard to tell where the sky ends and the sea begins. The ocean gives, but it also takes. One morning, a child wanders too close to the water. A wave, higher than the rest, crashes in and drags them under. You pull them out, coughing and wide-eyed, but it leaves the whole camp shaken. Some say you should turn back inland, follow the rivers again, find new valleys to settle. Others, the restless ones, look south. They say the coast goes on forever, that if you follow it, you'll find new lands richer than anything you've seen. You walk for days with the sea at your side. The beach shifts, sometimes wide and white, sometimes nothing but jagged black rock. The forest presses in again in places, forcing you to climb over fallen trees and roots slick with sea spray. You pass the remains of something massive, bones longer than a man's body, curved like the ribs of the earth itself, half buried in sand. The elders say it was a spirit beast that swam the seas before the first people walked the land. You don't doubt them. The coast is never the same for long. Some days the water is calm, lapping at the shore like a sleeping animal. Other days it rages, throwing itself at the land as if it wants to tear it away piece by piece. You find small islands just offshore, close enough to see clearly, but too far to swim without risking your life. On clear days, you can see birds circling above them, and you wonder what else lives there. The ocean is a barrier, but it's also a map, a line you can follow without getting lost. It leads you south, mile after mile, past coves, cliffs, and stretches of sand where no one has ever walked before. And every step, you wonder if you've reached the true edge of the world, or if the world is bigger than you've ever imagined. The sea never leaves your side now. Every morning you wake to the same rhythm, waves pounding, pulling, whispering back into themselves. The sound is in your dreams, your thoughts, the pauses between your words. Sometimes it feels like the ocean is walking with you, step for step, just out of reach. Travel is easier here, in its own way. You don't have to fight through forest all the time. Beaches stretch out for miles. Hard-packed sand under your feet, open sky above. The wind is constant, carrying the taste of salt and fish. But easier is not the same as safe. The coast changes shape without warning. Wide beaches give way to jagged cliffs. You climb paths barely wide enough for a foot. The drop beside you nothing but air and the crash of waves far below. Other times, the beach disappears underwater entirely, and you're forced inland, hacking your way through tangled green until you can find the shore again. Food comes in strange new forms. You learn to dig in the sand for crabs that click and snap at your fingers. You spear fish in tidal pools when the water pulls back, their silver bodies flashing in the sun. Seals, fat, slow on land, fast in water, bark at you from rocks offshore. The hunters talk about trying to catch one. They try once, only once. Some days you find gifts, a dead whale, bloated and reeking, its skin split open by the sun. You take what you can, meat, fat, bone, but you don't stay long. The smell clings to you for days, and the scavenger birds never stop circling. The sea gives you a road, but it also traps you. In some places, cliffs block the way forward, the waves smashing against their base with a violence that leaves no doubt. If you fall, you won't come back. You're forced to climb, the stone wet and slick with moss, each step a gamble. The weather changes faster here. Mornings can be calm, the water glittering like glass. By midday, the sky darkens, and the wind picks up until you can barely see for the spray in your eyes. Rain falls hard enough to sting your skin. You huddle under whatever shelter you can find, waiting for the storm to burn itself out. The nights are colder now. The air carries a sharper edge, and you know you're moving into lands the sun touches less kindly. You wrap yourself in furs, but the damp never leaves. Sleep comes in snatches, broken by the sound of waves hitting rock like drum beats. You meet others here, small groups moving in the same direction, some from the north like you, others already part of this coast for longer than anyone can remember. They trade dried fish and tools for meat and hides. You share stories around fires on beaches that will be empty again by morning. The coast teaches you to read the tides, when the water will retreat, when it will rise to swallow the sand. Get it wrong, and you're trapped between the ocean and the cliffs. Get it right, and you can cover twice the distance before the sea returns to claim its ground. Every step south changes the land. The forests thin, the beaches grow wider. The air loses some of its heavy wetness, replaced by a cool that bites more than it soothes. The waves grow stronger, louder, as if they know where you're headed. Some say you're following the sea to its end. Others say the sea has no end, that if you walk far enough, you'll come back to where you started. You don't know which is worse, but you keep walking because you've come too far to stop. The trees vanish first. One morning you climb a low ridge expecting to see the same tangled green and silver line of water, and instead, the world just opens. No more forest pressing in, no more thick, wet air, only a vast emptiness that seems to run forever in every direction. The wind meets you immediately, sharp and unrelenting. It doesn't wait to see if you're ready. It pushes against your chest, snatches at your furs, tries to pull the breath from your mouth. The others lean into it as they walk, heads down, as if bowing to something you can't see. The land here is strange, flat in some places, rolling in others, dotted with boulders like the bones of giants. The grass is short, dry, and always moving in the wind's constant hand. Clouds race across the sky, casting shadows that slide over the earth like passing spirits. The sea is still with you, but it feels different now. The waves are rougher, louder, as if the wind is stirring them up just to see what happens. The beaches are narrower, the cliffs steeper. You don't linger on the shore, there's nothing to hide behind, and the wind cuts straight through you. Hunting changes again. The animals here are built for speed and distance, long-legged, watchful, quick to vanish at the first sign of danger. You chase them across the open plain, lungs burning, until you learn the only way to catch them is to work together, driving them toward traps or cliffs. Nights are brutal. The wind never stops. Even by the fire, the cold gnaws at your bones. Sparks are ripped away before they can rise. You pull your furs tight, curling against others for warmth, listening to the endless howl outside your camp. Sleep is thin, and the dreams are full of motion, running, falling, chasing something you can't catch. Water is scarce. Streams appear and disappear without warning, swallowed by the ground. The few rivers you find run cold and fast, fed by distant mountains you can just barely see on the horizon. The elders say the land is testing you, stripping away the softness you've carried from the forest and coast. Here, there is nothing to hide behind. The open space makes you feel small, exposed, as if the sky itself is watching. Still, the land has its gifts. On clear days, the sun turns the grass to gold. You can see for miles in every direction, tracking game long before it knows you're there. The wind carries scents far, warning you of predators or other humans before you cross paths. You pass ancient stones standing upright in the earth, taller than a man. No one knows who placed them there, or why. They cast long shadows at dawn and dusk, and the hunters avoid camping too close. Some say they mark old hunting grounds. Others say they're the work of spirits who still walk here. The sea and the plains seem to be at war here, the waves crashing endlessly against the cliffs, while the wind sweeps the land clean of anything too fragile to stand. You feel caught between them, pulled in two directions. Travel is faster now, no tangled routes or steep climbs. But it's exhausting in its own way. The wind wears you down. The open space tricks your mind into thinking distances are shorter than they are. You walk for hours toward a hill that never seems to get closer. And always, the land rolls on, endless, relentless, the wind in your ears until you can't remember what silence feels like. Some nights, you wonder if you've left the world behind entirely. The land starts to tighten again. The plains shrink, replaced by dark hills that rise like frozen waves. The air is sharper here, thin and cold enough to bite at your lungs. The wind, somehow, is worse. It cuts through furs and skin alike, leaving you raw. Your breath turns white the moment it leaves your mouth. And then, one morning, you see it. Not the sea, though that's still there, black and heaving to your right, but something stranger. A wall of white rising in the distance, brighter than the clouds, brighter than anything you've ever seen. It catches the sunlight like a blade. Ice. You've seen frost before. You've seen rivers freeze. But this is different. This is a living thing. You can hear it groaning when the wind drops, the sound deep and slow, like the earth shifting in its sleep. The closer you get, the colder the air becomes, until your fingers ache and your face burns. Food is scarce. The animals here wear thick coats and watch you with wary eyes. Some move in small herds across the snow, their hooves crunching in the silence. The hunters talk about bringing one down, but every step in this land feels harder than the last. Nights are dangerous. Fires burn low, the cold swallowing their heat before it can spread. You sleep in a huddle, pressed against others, knowing that if you drift too far from the group, you might not wake up. The stars here are sharper, clearer, as if the cold has polished them. The sea changes too. Waves crash against cliffs dusted in snow, the spray freezing as it rises. Some mornings the water is calm, sealed under a thin sheet of ice that cracks like glass when the tide turns. You keep moving south because there's nothing else to do. Stopping means freezing. The ice ahead grows taller. It's not just a wall now, it's a land of its own. Ridges and valleys of frozen blue stretch farther than you can see. The wind sweeps across it without mercy, carrying fine shards that sting your skin. Crossing is slow. The ground shifts under your feet, cracking in places to reveal dark water below. You learn to test each step, to read the patterns in the snow, to follow the paths where the ice holds firm. But the ice doesn't care about your plans. One night, a storm comes in from the sea, a white darkness that erases the world. You can't see more than a few steps ahead. The cold seeps into your bones until thought itself slows. You keep moving only because stopping feels worse. When the storm finally breaks, the land is changed. Drifts cover old paths, landmarks are gone. You walk on, guessing your way forward, guided only by the sun's pale arc in the sky. And then, after days that blur into one another, you reach it, the southern edge. Not an edge like a cliff or a shore, more like the point where the land simply runs out of will. Ice and rock meet the sea in jagged shards. The waves here are heavier, slower, as if weighed down by the cold. There's no more south to walk to. This is the end. The elders stand in silence, looking out over the water. You feel something shift inside you, relief maybe, or the quiet understanding that there's nowhere else to go. You've walked from the warm forests of the north to the frozen skin of the world, and in the end, all you can do is turn around and face the long road back, or the even longer road into the unknown west. The sea here is not like the one you knew before. It's heavier, slower, darker. The waves move with the weight of something that's been alive longer than memory. They don't glitter, they glower. The air above them is sharp with salt and cold, and the gulls' cries are fewer, thinner. You stand on the edge of the continent, watching the water breathe. Behind you, the land offers nothing but ice, wind, and hunger. Ahead of you, more of the same, but broken into scattered shapes of rock and green, floating in the endless dark. The elders say those are islands, some close enough to see clearly, others only hints on the horizon, showing themselves in the morning and vanishing by nightfall. To reach them, you need boats. Not the dugout canoes you knew in the warmer coasts. Those would shatter in these waters. Here, you lash together frames of wood and bone, stretching hides over them until they're tight as drums. The hides must be perfect. No holes, no weak spots. Out here, water isn't just cold. It kills. The first journeys are cautious. You hug the coastline, paddling from one sheltered cove to the next. The waves rock the boat in slow, deep swells, the kind that make your stomach turn even when the sea looks calm. But the coast isn't always safe. Sometimes the cliffs drop straight into the sea, leaving you no choice but to push farther out. The land falls away behind you, the horizon rises ahead, and for a few long hours, you are nothing but a speck between water and sky. Out here, the world feels enormous. The air is so clear you can see mountains on distant islands, their tops white with snow. Seals follow your boat for a while, popping up beside you before vanishing into the deep. You hear the rush of unseen whales, the slap of their tails on the water. When you reach the first island, it feels like stepping into another world. The wind is gentler here, the grass short and tough. The beach is narrow and full of shells. Birds nest in the cliffs, and their eggs fill your hands by the dozens. Fresh water trickles down from the hills. It feels almost easy, until the storms come. Island storms are sudden. One moment the sky is bright, the next it's a wall of gray rushing toward you. The wind slams into the island from every direction, and the sea turns white with foam. Boats drag at their moorings, and everyone huddles in whatever shelter they can find, hoping the waves won't claim them. Still, the islands call to you. You move from one to the next, finding new hunting grounds, new fishing spots, new places to rest before pushing farther. Each journey teaches you more: how to read the swell of the waves, how to watch the clouds for signs of change, how to keep your body moving even when the cold creeps into your bones. Some say there are more islands beyond the ones you can see, lands where the sun is warmer, where the wind doesn't cut so deep. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter. You keep going because the horizon is always there, and the land behind you has nothing left to give. One night, far from the mainland, you watch the stars. They're different here. Some you remember, others new. Their patterns shifted by the curve of the world. The sea is calm, and for a moment it feels as if you're floating not on water, but in the space between stars. You know the journey will never truly end. Every shore leads to another crossing. Every island is just a pause before the next leap into the dark, and still, you paddle on. The land begins to lean toward the sun. You don't notice it at first. The cold still clings to your skin. The wind still chews at your face. But something in the light changes. The days grow a little longer. The shadows stretch differently. The air smells faintly of wet earth instead of frozen stone. You follow rivers westward, letting them lead you toward the distant sound of waves. The rivers grow wider, slower, bending through valleys green with moss and ferns. Elk wander here in small herds, their hooves sinking into soft ground. You stalk them through the mist, learning how the land muffles sound. The forest returns, but not like the one you left long ago. These trees are taller, impossibly tall, with trunks wide enough to swallow 3 people standing side by side. Their tops are lost in clouds, their bark rough under your hands. The canopy shuts out most of the sky, and the air beneath feels like another world. Hunting is different here. The animals are quiet, hidden. Deer slip between the trees like shadows. Bears leave claw marks high on trunks as if to warn you. The ocean is close, but you can't see it yet. Only smell its salt in the wind, hear its deep voice behind the hills. When you finally break out of the trees, it's there. The Pacific. It's nothing like the southern seas you crossed. This one feels infinite. The horizon isn't a line. It's a promise you'll never keep. The waves are slower but taller, curling forward with the weight of centuries. The beach is wide and flat, the sand dark with minerals. Driftwood lies in great bleached tangles, some logs as large as the trees inland. The coast is alive with movement. Seals haul themselves onto the sand, barking at one another. Birds wheel overhead, their cries carried far by the wind. In the tidal pools, starfish cling to rocks, and crabs scuttle away from your shadow. Food is easier to find here. Fish in the rivers, shellfish in the shallows, berries in the woods. You build shelters from the driftwood, tying hides between the logs to keep the wind out. Fires burn hotter now that the air is damp rather than frozen. Still, this isn't a place of rest. The tides shift quickly, swallowing the beach without warning. Storms roll in from the ocean in thick gray sheets, the wind pushing so hard it feels like the land itself might tip. The elders warn you never to turn your back on the sea. The farther west you travel, the more the coast changes. Some places are all cliffs, the rock black and jagged, the waves exploding against them in bursts of white. In others, the beaches stretch for miles, littered with shells and bones from creatures you've never seen. You meet other groups here, people who have also followed the rivers down from the north or paddled along the shore from the south. Their faces are new, their words strange, but their eyes carry the same stories as yours. Sometimes you share food and fire. Sometimes you pass in silence, each group wary of the other. The land behind you is already fading into memory. You've walked through ice, across plains, along coasts both gentle and cruel. Now, with the Pacific in front of you, the journey feels different, not like an ending, but like standing at the edge of a map no one has drawn yet. Some of the younger hunters speak of following the coast farther, all the way until it curves into places no one has seen. Others want to turn inland, to climb the hills and see what lies beyond. You look out at the ocean and feel both small and endless. You've reached the far west, but there's still more west left to go, and so you keep walking. The ocean doesn't tell you what's out there. It never has. It only shows you what it wants you to see. The shifting line of the horizon, the rolling backs of waves, the glitter of sunlight like a trail you'll never catch. Beyond that, silence. But some say there's land. Not just the thin strip of sand under your feet right now, but whole other worlds floating out there. Places where the trees bend under the weight of fruit, where the water is so warm you can walk in without flinching, where storms pass as quickly as they come. You've seen the islands close to shore, the ones you can paddle to in a day, sometimes two. They're wild and bright, their beaches covered in shells, their waters full of fish that dart like silver knives. They've kept you fed when the coast offered little. But these new islands, they aren't close. They aren't visible. They're out there, past the line where the sky kisses the water. To reach them, you'd have to lose sight of land entirely, and that's where the danger lives. You've heard the stories. Boats swallowed by storms, nights when the sky and sea blend into one black mass, days when the wind vanishes and the water lies flat and heavy, holding you in place like a hand. Still, the idea won't leave you alone. The elders argue. Some say there's nothing beyond the horizon, only more water. Others say the ancestors came from across a different sea, and that leaving is simply returning. You don't know who's right. The boats change. They grow wider, stronger. Frames of driftwood lashed together, covered with stitched hides so tight you can bounce a stone off them. Outriggers made from straight logs keep them steady, and paddles are carved smooth from bone and wood. The preparations take weeks, sometimes moons. When the day comes, you push into the surf at dawn. The waves fight you at first, trying to shove you back to shore. You push harder. The beach grows smaller, the land flatter, until finally it's just a smudge on the water. And then, nothing. The ocean becomes your world. By day, the sun is your guide. You watch its path across the sky, adjusting the boat's nose to keep it where you want it. The water changes color under you. sometimes green, sometimes deep blue, sometimes gray. You can smell when you're passing over shallow reefs, hear the hiss of small waves breaking against them. By night, the stars take over. You've learned their patterns, the way they shift as the seasons turn. Out here, without trees or mountains to block them, the sky is a dome of fire. You follow certain stars like they're old friends, trusting them to lead you somewhere solid. The sea feeds you when it feels generous. Fish leap into the boat or bite at the hooks you trail behind. Other days, nothing. The wind pushes you along whether you want it to or not. On the fourth day, or maybe the fifth, you've lost count. You see it, a shadow on the horizon. It grows slowly, the way mountains do when you walk toward them. Green at the base, dark in the middle, white clouds tangled in the top. An island, real, solid, waiting. When you land, the sand is warm under your feet. The trees here are heavy with fruit. The air smells sweet. Birds you've never seen cry from the branches, and streams run cold and clear from the hills. You've crossed the unknown, and it feels like stepping into a dream you didn't know you had. But even as you rest, you look out over the water. The horizon is still there, and somewhere beyond it, more. There's a strange kind of silence here, not the silence of night, when the crickets sing and the wind talks to the trees, not the silence of winter, when snow swallows every sound. This is heavier, like the land itself is holding its breath. You've walked farther than most, crossed mountains where the air thinned and froze in your chest, trudged through plains so wide you forgot what it felt like to see an end, followed the curve of the ocean until it bent away from you, and now, this. The last edge of the map. The land rises into cliffs, black and jagged, as if the bones of the earth are poking through its skin. Below, the water hammers the rocks, spraying salt into the air. The smell is sharp, almost metallic. There are no trails here, no worn paths. Every step is a negotiation with roots, stones, and sudden drops. You move slowly, eyes always on the ground, ears open for the sound of loose rock. Food is harder to find. The animals are shy, unused to people. They watch from the shadows, slipping away before you can close the distance. You've learned to eat whatever the land offers. Bitter leaves, shellfish pried from rocks, the occasional bird caught in a snare. At night, the wind is relentless. It hisses through the grass and rattles the branches. Fires burn low, the flames bent sideways by the gusts. Sleep comes in fits, broken by the cold pressing against your back. You know why you're here. It's not for comfort. It's for the simple fact that no one else has been. There's a hunger in you, not for food, but for something harder to name. To stand where no footsteps have fallen. To see what lies beyond the next ridge. To find out if this last place is really the last. Sometimes you think you can feel the edge of the world under your feet. Not that it drops away into nothing, but that it leans, pulling you toward whatever waits beyond. The elders back at the coast told stories about this place. Some said it was cursed, where spirits walked openly. Others swore it was sacred, the birthplace of the winds. They all agreed on one thing: it was not meant for living. They were right. The soil is thin, the rivers short and cold, the weather always shifting. But it's also alive in its own way. The colors sharper, the air cleaner, the light strange and golden in the evenings. Days pass like this. You move forward, camp, move again. Sometimes you find nothing but rock and scrub. Other times you stumble onto pockets of beauty, a hidden meadow full of flowers, a pool of water so clear you can see every stone at the bottom. Eventually, the cliffs flatten. The land lowers itself toward the sea again, and the ground turns soft under your feet. Ahead is a long beach, untouched, stretching until it fades into mist. The waves roll in slow and heavy, their sound deep enough to feel in your chest. You walk out onto the sand and realize something. There's nowhere else to go. You've reached the end. It's not a dramatic end. No towering wall of ice, no bottomless drop into darkness. Just the quiet meeting of land and water, repeating forever. You stand there for a long time, the wind tugging at your hair, the salt drying on your skin. You think about the path you've taken, the rivers, the forests, the deserts, the mountains. Every step was a choice, and every choice led here. And then, like everyone before you look out at the horizon and wonder, what if there's more? The strange thing about reaching the end of the world is, it doesn't feel like the end. You expect some kind of finality, a sign, a voice booming from the clouds telling you, congratulations, you've made it. Instead, you just have the sea, the same sea you've seen 100 times before, restless, cold, and unimpressed. So you turn around, not because you want to, because you have to. There's no food here, no shelter. The wind comes from every direction at once, as if the world is trying to push you back. Staying means starving. Moving means maybe surviving. The journey home, if you can even call it home anymore, is never the same as the journey out. The land feels different. The mountains you climbed now feel twice as tall. The rivers you crossed have grown wider. The animals seem bolder, less frightened. Maybe you're just slower now. You follow your old paths, but they're not as easy to read as you remember. Time erases signs of travel. Grass grows over footprints. Trails wash away in the rain. Sometimes you're sure you've taken a wrong turn, only to find a familiar landmark days later. Along the way, you meet others. Some are moving in the same direction, carrying baskets of dried fish or bundles of fur. Others are strangers, heading the opposite way, eager to see what lies beyond the lands you've just left. You trade stories like you trade goods, cautiously, but with interest. It's the start of something new. Until now, most movement has been one way, outward, further, deeper into the unknown. But now people begin to travel both ways. Paths become threads, threads become lines, and lines weave together into a web. And with the web comes exchange. You bring obsidian from the mountains to the coast. In return, you get shells the color of sunrise, sharp enough to cut skin. You carry dried meat across the plains, trading it for seeds you've never seen before. A stranger shows you how to twist plant fibers into rope stronger than sinew. You show them how to shape stone into a sharper edge. Slowly, the world feels smaller, not smaller in distance. It's still huge, endless in places, but smaller in connection. You know people who live 2 weeks' walk away. You've heard stories from lands you've never seen. A tool in your hand might have passed through 5 different camps before reaching you. Of course, travel is still dangerous. You lose people to sickness, to storms, to accidents you don't want to think about. Every trip could be your last. But the pull of movement is stronger than the fear. And sometimes the return journey brings more than just goods. It brings news, a sickness spreading in the north, herds moving east, a new shelter found in the cliffs by the shore. These things matter. They mean survival. The faster the news moves, the better your chances. By the time you reach the place you once left, you realize it's not the same. The children are older. The fires are built in different places. The people greet you with curiosity, as if you're half stranger now. You tell your story by the fire that night, the long beaches, the last cliff, the endless sea, and they listen in silence. Someone asks if you'll go again. You laugh. Of course not. You've seen enough. But later, lying awake under the stars, you catch yourself staring at the dark line of the horizon, wondering, because you know how this works. No journey is ever truly over. The path is always there, waiting. And sooner or later, someone takes it. One day, the world had no more uncharted territories. The camps by the rivers no longer stood in solitude. Footprints adorned the slopes of distant mountains, and even the far-flung islands now flickered with the glow of fires at night. You could embark on a journey lasting months, yet always find yourself just days away from another's sanctuary. The world wasn't overflowing with people, not yet, but it had become undeniably interconnected. This transformation wasn't the result of a single lifetime, nor 10, nor 20. It was the gradual accumulation of countless footsteps, weaving paths into an intricate net. Each crossing wove a thread into this invisible tapestry. Every homecoming stitched it tighter, until, within the minds of your people, the map, unseen yet enduring, was drawn. Deserts remained vast. Mountains still soared. The ocean spanned endless horizons, but unreachable was a concept of the past. There was always a route, if you knew whom to consult, when to journey, which wines to ride. The natural world sensed this change. Herds that once roamed freely now altered their paths to sidestep human presence. Fish became elusive. The land had absorbed your scent, and you had become an integral thread in its fabric. With more people came the inevitability of change. The ancient rhythms of life shifted. A family that once followed a herd's migration might now exchange goods for meat, allowing them to linger by the coast. A community fed by the sea's bounty might begin to savor grain, carried hand to hand from distant valleys. Cultures mingled, languages intertwined. River names, plant names, star names fused into novel melodies. A tool from one corner of the earth appeared in an opposite camp. A song heard in the highlands echoed with the cadence of tunes sung by the sea, yet connectivity was a double-edged sword. Danger journeyed as readily as tales along these shared paths. Illnesses spread with the speed of trade. Disputes between two groups radiated outward, enveloping people who had never met the original antagonists. A new phenomenon emerged. Identities defined not solely by place, but by distinction. Boundaries. Not the physical demarcations of today's maps, but mental lines. Us and them becoming clearer as the world condensed. There was no halting it. The delineations of the map dissolved. The dream of untouched land, of the unknown frontier, it dwindled to a mere tale. In its wake, a new dream surfaced, a yearning to retrace old pathways, to wander not for discovery, but for remembrance. The youth grew up amid legends of mountains they might never ascend, deserts they might not traverse, seas they might never sail, not because the paths were closed, but because others had already walked them. The journey ceased to be the destination. The world was charted. Yet, there was a price to this knowledge. Mystery waned. The nights spent beside the fire, gazing into the abyss and pondering what lies beyond. Such moments became rare. The answers were accessible, yet answers paled beside the allure of questions. One evening, you stood upon a hill, surveying the land. You observed smoke from 3 distinct camps spiraling skyward. You knew the people who tended these fires. You had savored their meals, traded their wares, listened to their narratives. Deep within, there was both pride and a pang of loss, for this was the moment. The grand voyage had concluded. The world was inhabited. From the dense forests of the north to the frosted brink of the south, from the western deserts to the remotest islands, every place was walked, named, woven into the legacy of your people. Now, history pivoted. The era of wandering had ceased. The age of settlement had dawned.